Hi, my name is Tim Thompson, and my friends over at Emergent Village put out a request for novel metaphors that could be used to help explain the atonement. And I like to think in metaphors, so I thought I'd offer a contribution to that. The metaphor I want to share with you is one I call the L-shaped pipe, and I'm going to be illustrating it using this very attractive piece of tubing that I got from the local Axeman surplus store. The essence of the metaphor is it starts off by saying, how do we describe what does it mean to be human? And it says, the real essence of being human is that we're created to be connected to God so that we can serve as a conduit for the love and the forgiveness and all the gifts of God that flow through us and then out to our neighbors in love and service. So the three essential features of what does it mean to be human is to be connected in relationship to God and then serving in relationship to our neighbor, and to have this shape where we participate in directing things out into the world rather than just letting it pass through. If you start with that as a description of what does it mean to be human, you can then sort of tell the story of creation and fall and redemption through the metaphor. And it unfolds like this. Although we as humans are intended to have this shape, sin shows up in our tendency to start to say, I really would like to take all this stuff that I'm sending off to other people, and I'd like to pull that around and give it to myself. Rather than serve your neighbor, serve yourself. At the same time, we have a tendency to say, instead of depending on you, I would rather look to myself and be more independent than depending on God. And those two sinful urges within us, we put them together and it distorts the shape of humanity and changes us into something that is really a perversion of what being human is really supposed to be all about. It has a lot of the same features, but it's not at all the same. There's still connectedness, but instead of being connected to God and connected to our neighbors, we become connected to ourselves. There's still flow, but instead of flow that actually goes somewhere, it's sort of a circulating flow. And there's certainly a shape, but it's not the shape that we're intended to have. So we become self-serving, self-sufficient, or at least we think so, and self-centered. And to take on this shape it's disfigured, it's disrupted the flow, and disconnected from God. The other problem with this then is this representation of sin, or the way it shows us what the problem of sin is it makes you susceptible to death. Now, in this model, what death is it's something that gets a hold of you and wrenches you apart to break the connection and ultimately leaves you even less human. It leaves you dead. Death is this wrenching action of breaking things apart. And lastly, the other thing I want to say about this metaphor is when to represent sin this way, it kind of gets at the idea that the problem of sin is not so much that God is offended and needs to be appeased or have some sort of sacrifice made. Certainly it is offensive to God to pull away. But the problem of sin is the condition. It's the question, how are you going to be connected to God when you've broken that connection and become stuck in upon yourself? And if you happen to know the theological terms, you'll recognize this as curvatus in se, one of the definitions for the condition of sin as being curved in on yourself. In the second part of this video, I'm going to then take this and use it as the basis for an explanation of atonement, the metaphor for atonement.